Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues. All protocols observed. That's a get out of forgetting people's names and things like that as well. So welcome to the university, and to our research seminars, which is based upon the needs of the country. And what we're trying to do is to raise the profile of research within the university by addressing local needs. I'm blown away today and immensely proud of our young people from SAL, our students from SALS who have wanted to come and join us today, and you are more than welcome. I'm more than welcome to come along to the next ones. Our representatives from our prison service, soon to be the correctional services as well. Thank you for giving up your time again to support the university. Colleagues from the faculties and representatives from Seychelles Police.
Hello. Yes. Anyway,
I'm pleased to present to you and introduce Superintendent Quatre, who's going to talk to us this afternoon about the unseen things what the police do. We see the police every day. We see the police every day in their cars. We see the police directing traffic. What we don't see is the hard work, the research, the tenacity, never giving up in the pursuit of justice as well, and protecting us while we are here. The prison, the police service are fast developing. Developing exceptionally quickly, and there are many job opportunities and career opportunities for young people to be able to
related avec ça qui nous peut faire dans la classe, parce que la reste la réponse. Besoin li qui cause, le programme ça sont SP, mais c'est moi qui tire cause là, il met ses affaires, les présidents, qui nouveau président qui vient, il dit comme si tu déclares, et puis dit petit dit mon Noël fait, on appelle là comme si ça. Mais là tu peux regarder un petit peu statistiques comme si quantité de monde, ça que tu peux regarder. Mon cadre nous va aimer if you comme si au cadre c'est demander que if she still wants it pour les qui responsable pour faire task pour sa semaine parce que normalement tout consultement et tu dis moi pour dire il nous donne ça l'information pour gagner so ça fait pour venir là
I just need to move.
Je demande moi dernier affaires je demande mes affaires portrait après moi tu répondre moi tu dis
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Mr. Hall, for the introduction. My name is Aubrey. I'm Superintendent of Police, currently the Commanding Officer of the Scientific Support and Criminal Records Bureau. So it all started with the last presentation I did for University of Seychelles, and what was apparent was that a lot of the general public did not know much of the work being done by the Scientific Support and Criminal Records Bureau. In the media, mostly you will hear of, or most of the promotional materials will be of the general policing. Sometimes you'll hear of the Criminal Investigation Division, but most of the time the scientific support aspect that works with criminal investigation are not very prominent in the media. So to follow up with that, presentation I did, we decided to have the same presentation with a little bit more with respect to other aspects that is currently being developed in the Seychelles Police, and to a wider audience, which I believe will be very fruitful to put the work that the Seychelles Police and particularly the scientific support are doing in criminal investigations. So a bit of background of myself. Like I said, I'm currently the commanding officer of the Scientific Support and Criminal Records Bureau. I've been in the line of field for 13 years, working my way through the ranks from sub-inspector, from different trainings, expertise in fingerprint, photography, crime scene investigation, as well as criminal psychology. I am also an associate lecturer to the University of Seychelles for criminal law program. So to get started, I will ask the question. I can see some familiar faces. I know maybe some individuals in the room may have heard of scientific support, but who hasn't heard or know the department within the Seychelles Police? Just from a raise of hand. It seems to be a different audience this time. So who can, everybody knows everything about the Scientific Support and Criminal Records Bureau? It's quite new, don't be shy. Have you heard it in the news, or where have you heard of excuse me? Word of mouth, okay? That's actually good. Most of the time, scientific support, you will usually encounter uniformed police officers. If you are encountering the scientific support, mostly will be the subunit of crime scene investigation in the unfortunate event that maybe you are a victim of crime. Most of the public will probably have met the crime scene section of the scientific support. So to get started, let me pull up the presentation. That's it. Okay, so we call the presentation behind the scenes. So there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. It's just not a matter of having officers coming on the scene, gathering evidence, or just being present at the scene. But afterwards, where the scene is done, there's a lot of things that goes on behind our presence. Okay. So the presentation will. Just 1 second. Will encompass of a small introduction about us, the working model we are employing, our organigram. We will meet the team. We have a very small team, as you will see. Also the units profile, the different subsections within the Scientific Support and Criminal Records Bureau, as well as a bit of statistics, our accomplishment from past year, that is from year 2023. Also the challenges that we encounter as a unit within the Seychelles Police, and certain proposed solutions that we have come with for the year of 2027. Okay, so just to give you a general idea of our unit within the Seychelles Police structure, we are where the red arrow points. That's falls within the specialized unit, which falls under the detective services unit. So we have different subunits within detective services. We have the commercial crime unit. We have the financial crime unit. Probably you've heard of those too. We have anti-narcotics bureau. We also have other units within. Okay, so this is where we fall within the police structure, very small unit. About us, our organization primary mission is to provide forensic services that are universally recognized. It's important to have a standard when you talk about forensic evidence within the police and within any government, that are universally recognized and employed throughout the world, designed specifically to conform to the judicial benchmarks and requirements of Seychelles. So As we go along with the presentation, you will see that as a developing country, Seychelles, we don't have unlimited resources to pull from. So we have to tailor the service we are providing to the public according to the resource we have available. And also you will find that there are certain services that we tend to send it abroad to provide. Okay, so we have to outsource those services. Our working model, our research is informed by procedures and techniques to leverage available resources to deliver efficient services. Okay, again, the issue of our resources, available resources. The abstract, our investigation prioritize transparency in employed techniques, guaranteeing their compliance with judicial review and admissibility standards for successful prosecution. All the work that are being done by the scientific support needs to end up in court. So whatever we do at the start, the first stage of investigation, we always have to think about the court process, where it's going to end. Or else whatever is being done, the work, if it's not good enough to be tendered as evidence in court, then the work itself will be of no use. Okay, we are a waste of time. So at an early stage, all we think is trial, till it is produced as evidence in court. And the model is the prioritization of prompt service delivery for credible and relevant request services is paramount. Okay, when we say prompt, when we look at social media, sometimes we see that the police, not only the police, there are certain not issues per se, but arguments that it takes a long time for the police to respond to scene. And we try to respond to those demands on a timely basis to provide the service. Okay, so the organigram, as you will see, there are 6 subunits within the Scientific Support and Criminal Records Bureau. We have the commanding officer, myself, deputy commanding officer, and then we have 6 subunits, which comprise the forensic science laboratory section, digital forensics. We also have crime scene unit, crime information services, fingerprint identification and enhancement unit, and investigative psychology. And afterwards, I'll go a little bit more detail about the different subsection and the service that's being provided. Excuse me. So to meet the team, these are basically the management team with regards to Scientific Support and Criminal Records Bureau. So we have myself and a deputy officer in charge. That's Yves Leon. And then we have the different head of the different subsections. We have inspectors ranging from inspectors to sergeants. And all the officers, there are no civilians currently working as experts within the scientific supports. You have to be a police officer. Okay. Again, this is all of the staff from the different subunits. It's a very, very small team. And as you will see from the amount of work being done, is quite a lot. And exceptional work are being done by those officers. Okay, going through the different subunits. First of all, I will touch upon the digital forensics unit. The role entails investigation and analysis of digital evidence associated with computer crimes and cybernetics incidents. Okay, so when you talk about cybercrime, computer crimes, those are the offenses where digital devices are being used to commit an offense. So you can have somebody using his mobile phone to call and threaten somebody. That's cyber-enabled crime. Okay? So, or even cyber stalking. You can have somebody stalking on the internet someone else. Sometimes you'll have certain victims sending certain indecent materials to the other person, where that person gets blackmailed to do additional favors, which falls under other offenses. And cybernetics incidents, that's incidents that occurs in the cyberspace, okay, which my colleague Sergeant Moril will talk on. Additionally, this encompasses digital evidence analysis and data recovery techniques. Digital analysis will be the analysis of those extracted evidence to be produced in court. But at one point, you have to extract and recover those evidence, those materials, for you to be able to analyze and produce a report to give in court. Again, this is a very small subunits. We have 6 officers, 4 officers which are more experienced. We recently got 2 new officers, and this line of fields, as you will see, for each you will need specialized training and a lot of training for those people to be able to stand in court to give evidence, because we're talking about evidence from a round range of devices. We can have laptops, tablets, mobile phones, GPS, CCTV, and this kind of specialization is not a general one where you can just have just one certificate. You have to have specialization in GPS, in mobile phones, tablets, I already mentioned CCTV specifically. Okay. So the next unit will be the investigative psychology unit. This role involves the forensic psychological assessment and evaluation of individual implicated in legal proceedings. So as soon as you are in contact with legal proceedings, you may request the assistance of a forensic psychologist. Okay, this includes for victims as well as suspects or accused. So it involves the responsibilities of determination of a defendant's mental competency to stand trial, discovery offending, and fitness for legal proceedings. We've had cases where victims are what we call vulnerable witnesses, someone with a mental disability who has been a victim of crime. Will we allow those individuals to stand court under the scrutiny of a defense lawyer to be questioned, especially those who have been victims and our evidence shows the same, but while in court being questioned, cross-examined, will their story hold? And some of those individuals may not always give the exact same story. And we have cases where this have happened. We have also children. They don't usually, it's not a usual place for a child to be in. And for those who have been in court, you will see that's a formal setting. And to have a child stand in court to give evidence, especially in cases of child abuse, it's very difficult. And one of our aims, and the aim of the subunit, is to have the assistance of forensic psychologists to help them throughout the process. And even for adults too, as well, it's not a regular place where we always go. And even adults feel intimidated with the setting, as much as the judicial system have tried to make it more pleasant for them to come and give evidence. Also, with regards to discovery offending, there have been some cases where the Attorney General's office have requested our forensic psychologists to assess, especially minors who have difficulties, who are committing petty offenses, the risk of them reoffending. And this is very important to know if we can rehabilitate those individuals so that they don't reoffend again, where the problem lies, and try to deal with it. Okay. Our next subunit will be the crime scene investigation unit. I believe that will be the subunit that probably most of you have heard of or have encountered. Okay. This the main role of the crime scene investigation is necessitate rigorous adherence to established protocols for collection, meticulous documentation, and secure preservation of relevant and forensic evidence. This encompasses of evidence recovery techniques, forensic photography, and evidence effective crime scene management. Now, at the face of it, this is a very important, because everything starts at the scene. All the evidence you're going to collect for further analysis, if mistakes are done on the scene with regards to the collection of the evidence or documentation of the evidence, then it affects the analysis part, especially with regards to contamination of evidence. Okay, so for now, we are collecting all the evidence with regards to physical evidence, document evidence, as well as trace evidence to give evidence in court. For the analysis part, if there are any contamination or question with regards to contamination or chain of custody with regards to those items, then they are put to the test in court. So from the start, the evidence is collected. It must be documented, whatever analysis or what happens with the exhibits until it reaches court. So that's basically chain of custody, as well as forensic photography to bring the scene to the court. Moving on, we have the forensic science laboratory. Now, this responsibility entails the performance of comprehensive and meticulous examinations, as well as in-depth analysis of evidence procured from the scenes. Okay, so that's where the analysis part comes in. The scope of expertise encompasses chemical analysis, controlled substance identification, toxicological evaluation, biological evidence examination, and question document analysis. So there's quite a variety of analysis being done with regards to forensic science laboratory. However, when we look at the standard of a forensic science laboratory from around the world, there are many more services that can be provided. And some, like I said earlier, we have to outsource to other laboratory based on our capacity and resource we have available. So taking into account the bulk of our analysis we are currently being done at the FSL of the scientific supports are mainly anti-narcotics identification. Okay, that is substance identification. We're trying to build on the biological evidence too as well. When we talk about biological evidence, it's the first line to DNA. So you have to identify which biological evidence you have. Is it human blood? Is it sperm, human sperm? Is it the hair? Is it the fiber? So it has to be identified at an initial stage so we know how to preserve and send it for further analysis. Sometimes we can even identify in case of poisoning, or to be able to interpret a crime scene in very serious offenses to know which evidence we're dealing with. Okay, question documents relates to counterfeit notes, bank notes, or counterfeit or fraudulent documents. So we'll be able to identify which document has been forged. Okay. Again, the crime investigation services. So when you have lots of data with you, you must find a way of relating those information. You have to relate those information to the public, to our other organizations that work along with us, who request our assistance. Those are mainly from offices of, we deal a lot with the Anti-Narcotics Bureau, as well as the FCRU and ACCS. We have also assisted with, in terms of identification, international agencies, Interpol, if they have a query with regards to fingerprint, for us to identify and send the information to them. So these basically are the ones dealing with those information, in addition to, the judiciary asking for previous convictions for sentencing purposes. So in terms of reoffending, we have individuals that continuously committing the same offense, and when the judiciary is going to pass the sentence on the individual, he will the judiciary will like to know the previous convictions, so that they can give a sentence based on the reoffending of this person. In addition, character certificates quite popular. We get a lot of requests for character certificates, so as well, this is the office which deals with those documentation. And the last but not least subunits is the fingerprint identification and enhancement unit. This role entails the oversight and management of the criminal fingerprint database. So we do have a database, and the responsibility involves analysis, examination, and identification of latent prints. Those are the prints that are developed on the scene, which we cannot see with our eyes, and those are the crime scene officers which will gather those fingerprints from the crime scene and bring it to the office to have the fingerprint identification and enhancement unit to work on to make an identification. We also employ techniques of enhancement, image enhancement, and print enhancement to optimize the print itself, the crime mark, we call it. Now, with regards to fingerprint and databases, our database encomprise mostly convicted offenders. We don't have a database like a general public database because the law does not permit us to have that. So those people who have been convicted of an offense, they are the ones which we have the fingerprints in the system. If anybody is a suspect for a crime, the prints are usually taken upon the consent of the person, or if the person refuses, then we can get a court order to have the prints taken. The print is used to either incriminate the person for the crime or exclude, to eliminate that person. And afterwards, the print is destroyed and not kept in our system. Okay. Now, looking back at 2023, we're gonna look at the statistics. I'm not gonna bore you with statistics because there's a lot being done by the SANC supporting Criminal Records Bureau, but some key findings with regards to 2023. If we look at the forensic science laboratory, we received 449 cases for the year 2023. Mind you, there's only 5 individuals doing the work there. And we have been, over the years, I can tell you, looking for people certified as analysts or people who have a degree in related science for us to have them trained for forensics purposes so that we have more analysts in the field. Again, the bulk of the work is controlled drug identification. Then we have crime scene investigation unit. The crime scene investigation unit had 1,827 cases. That's call outs. So they will be call out on scenes from minor offenses to major offenses, from Mahe, Pralin, Ladig, Inner Island, Outer Island, on cases which involve on the sea. They are the ones responding to those cases. And for the year 2023, it was 1,827. And again, it's only 12 individuals doing the work. 12 individuals, and the detection rate across the different agencies with regards to crime scene is 26.9, which is fingerprint identification, which is quite high compared to other countries in terms of identification. Then we have digital forensics. This is again a unit which is the requests are continuously improving throughout the years, and with a fast rate. And for 2023, items processed was 1,401. And it started with 3 years back, we were having 300 devices to process for that same subunit. Because most of the time nowadays, everybody has a mobile phone, everybody is in communication, a laptop, a tablet, smart watches. So those are the things we look for to gather evidence. As much as we don't think about it, we all have a digital life. That's what we call a digital imprint, where there's things about our lives and the things we do, or the things we Google. Okay, so investigative psychology, again, 122 clients. We have one officer doing the job, and as she has been doing the job for like the past 3 years, we found that it is not only the general public, the victims of crimes, suspect, like I said earlier, who is reaching out to our office to request for assistance, but it's also officers, police officers, and we have 20% of the 122 clients which are police officers who have reached out for assistance. Mainly the assistance she provides with regards to police officers are related to the work being performed. A lot of our frontline officers, during their work, they come across things that people don't usually experience on a daily basis. And sometimes this can be very traumatic. When we're dealing with, again, under the detective services, a specialized unit, that will be child protection. We have some cases where it's very hard for those officers, after doing the job, to go back to their home and think about what happened to the victims. And even in serious offenses like murder cases, manslaughter, it's not something that everybody sees. Okay? And this is where most of the requests comes from, mostly in debriefing of those officers and ways to deal with the work being done. Okay. So crime information services, again, a total of 12,819 requests, and that's only 2 officers working on in this unit. And again, character certificates, previous convictions, liaising with other, it's quite a lot of work. Fingerprint identification and enhancement section, we had 109 requests from Interpol with regards to fingerprint identification. So they will send us the fingerprints for us to cross-check against our system. And in other cases where involve transnational crime, we on our side will request their assistance and have our fingerprints sent to their databases. Okay, and with regards to the AFIS system, the automatic identification, fingerprint identification system, we had 115 hits. That sees 115 cases hit with fingerprints confirmation. Okay. So now we have a general idea of the service being provided by the SAN Sport and Criminal Records Bureau and the amount of work being done. I would like to touch on some accomplishments with regards to 2023 also. In 2023, we managed to acquire 5 new equipment. That is the TrueNAC. It's portable devices where we can test substances and identify substances, question substances for its content. We are currently employing it on crime scenes and cases of narcotics to identify which one. Digital acquisition and analysis devices, that's for digital forensics. Those are mostly softwares and devices you can bring us in to be able to extract information from devices. We have the Crime Light Pro, which we just had the training last month. Again, this is the latest equipment with regards to Crime Light. I don't know if you've seen in movies where the CSIs will use some blue light to search or some different colored lights. So basically, this is the latest one out there, and we have acquired it and have the training, and we have used it on scenes even for testing, and it's a very good system. Then we have the Scavenger system. Again, this is to take prints when we have transnational crimes. If we have piracy crimes or crimes which involves foreigners, we can take the fingerprints, their details, and send it directly to the Interpol database. It is not in-house equipment, but a mobile when we can move around on another island to have that information directly and send it to their system. Again, we provided with regards to training. We have our officers going for training, specialized training, and we also provide the Seychelles Police with forensic photography training. We do it throughout the year. I know we have a lot of work, but we try to fit in where we can train the other officers to be able to photograph minor cases where it involves exhibits and some damaging property too as well. And the past year, also, we had a successful detection of high-profile cases. And again, from last time I was presenting, if you're someone who watches the news, you will have heard of some of those cases, the murder cases, firearms cases. We also have manslaughter cases, which we have given evidence. We have arson cases where we have detected evidence to prove the case. And a good example would be the case which currently in court right now. That would be a good example where we got DNA as well as fingerprint evidence in the case. And finally, we had international collaboration and cooperation with other countries. Yeah? We have the Mauritius Forensic Lab, Quanti Lab, which where we send our DNA samples to be analyzed. We also had collaboration with the Kenyan police in cases of explosives to be able to identify explosives, as well as ballistics examination. And finally, with regards to German, it wasn't the police, it was a private lab. And again, we got positive feedback with regards to the work being done in Seychelles and the level of work being done. As those experts came to assist, and from their review, there was no other additional things proposed that we haven't done that they proposed for us to do. And we managed to solve the case on our own after they left, and we got the evidence to find the perpetrator of the offense. Okay, and again we have other collaborations with regards, like I said earlier, Interpol, Afripol, YAPCO, UNODC. Those are our partners and the partners of the Seychelles Police who keeps supporting Seychelles Police in terms of training and equipment too as well. Okay. Now, the organization is without their challenges. Okay. So the Civic Support and Criminal Records Bureau also have many challenges which we try to surmount, and those are recruitment, transfer, and retention. So when you have a specialized officer and the officer requests for transfer or decides to resign for whichever reason, and you're losing somebody you invested in to train to take a position. Okay. Transport, again, with the work we are doing, you need specialized transport, not the regular police transport, for us to be able to take the analysis that we're doing in-house, but we can do it on the scenes too. Equipments, again, we do get equipments, but in line of forensics, there's always development with regards to research and new ways of doing things, especially in digital forensics. Technology is moving at a very advanced pace, and you will need to be abreast with the new equipments or the new ways of doing things. Recognition and professional development, again, most of the officers are working in the background, and it's very difficult, one, for them to not to be noticed, but for their job to be put out there. This is a very sensitive job. We cannot expose, for example, our analysts in controlled drugs, for example. Okay, so they are working in the background, but there's a lot of work being done. And professional development, when you're working with a small team, to have those individuals go for training, for them to develop further, it's very difficult to have them. Or there's two ways: the unit will suffer and the person will move forward, or the unit will keep on having the officer, but yet the person won't be able to develop further. Okay, and finally, infrastructure. We are one of the units which we don't occupy only office space. As soon as you start acquiring new equipments, you will need space for you to place those equipments. And those equipments are not cheap. They need special conditions for them to be placed for their operations and longevity. Okay? And then we have issues like budgetary constraint. So if you have a budget which focuses only on operation, you will only operate but not develop. Okay? And acquiring new equipment, most of the equipments are subscription based, where you have to pay a license each month. And acquiring new equipment, you are basically inflating your current budget. So it always, you will need additional fund. Okay, so the proposed solution that we've come with regards to those issues for this year, we propose to have a full-fledged building for Civic Support and Criminal Records Bureau to cater for the different analysis that are being done at the office, as well as the equipment to cater for future expansion. Then additional cadre for specialists or detective within the police scheme of service. Basically, we need a special cadre where we have a sergeant who is an analyst doing, for example, drug analysis, and then you have a sergeant who is doing regular duties. So if those officers who are doing the specialized job get a better incentive, maybe we can attract additional officers to join our team. Because when you look at the market outside, most of the returning graduates, it's always greener to prosper on the private companies instead of coming within the police. So that's why we're trying to tackle to attract those individuals to join our team. Then budget review, catering for future development and expansion. So the budget always have to be looking at future prospects, not just the operational aspect of the office. And finally, building a comprehensive workforce to allow officers to attend advanced training regime which sometimes takes years. Okay, the specialized unit, you will have to do for a degree, a master's, a PhD. We do have some officers in the force right now with degrees, masters, and PhDs. But when you want to build a comprehensive workforce, you need more officers with those qualifications. Okay, and this is the final slide. I thank you for your attention. I hope I didn't bore you to sleep. Everybody's quiet. And I can open the for questions, or do I wait for my colleague to? Oh, it's the first one.
Thank you for that very insightful presentation. My question is related to how closely are you working with DICT, especially this is the way I see it is digital policies and all. It's closely related to the policies that stations as a country should have. Cybersecurity related policies or encryption related policies, anti-policy policies. On one side, it's debatable that policies might sit on a shelf, but at the same time, I'm of the opinion that we need efficient policies in place. So, the DICT being the regulatory, I'm just thinking, how closely I work with DICT.
Okay, thank you for your question. With regards to the ICT, there are certain works we are working with the ICT, particularly Scientific Support and Criminal Records Bureau. With respect to our network, we want to have a network specific to the Scientific Support and Criminal Records Bureau. The main reason being that, one, we have evidence to tender in court, so you must show with regards to the evidence being produced in court that it has not been tampered with. So you're in charge of your network and not some outside agency to have access to the network. Again, in terms of cybercrime, I know my colleague will touch on it. There are certain work being done with regards to cybercrime, and we have staff from the ICT putting forward a convention which hopefully Seychelles will sign. So it is on the rectifying level. We're supposed to have one meeting on 2nd of April. And this we are in consultant with the European Union, who's coming forward to propose amendments to the Cybercrime Act. Okay, but my colleague will talk about that. And there are other aspects where not only scientific support are working with the ICT. I know there are other services the ICT are providing to other units within the Seychelles Police. But for our unit in particularly, our needs are a bit different. They are catered towards admissibility of the evidence or the information we carry or store at our office. And when you speak of digital forensics, we cannot have our system online like the regular police, because we are doing extractions of information which may potentially be evidence in court, and we have to tender those evidence. And if you have a security breach or a backdoor where other individuals can get access to those information, then whichever information you collect will be questioned in court, and you have to prove that it has not been been tampered with or accessed. I hope this answers your question.
So you have an isolated network on your own.
Excuse me?
You have an isolated network on your.
Yes. Yes. Sure.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm just curious, why do you need a court order to obtain a fingerprint of a suspect? Does that mean that if you have like 10 suspects, you have to go to court to obtain a court order, and would that slow down the process of investigation?
Okay, thank you for your question. All police officers within the force, the police force is not above the law. Okay, so we have the Criminal Procedural Code, Section 30B, which dictates with regards to sample collected for court purposes. So it gives the details with regards to how we collect the sample, to obtain the sample, and what we need. So basically, it states that we need, for arrestable offense, to go into details, for arrestable offense, you will need the consent of that person. Yeah. And if the person refuses, then you have to ask the court, request the court for you to get the fingerprint or the DNA of that person. But if the person consents in writing, then you can have the evidence. That's why I said earlier, everything that's being done at the Scientific Support and Criminal Records Bureau, you have to think trial. You have to think about the admissibility of that evidence. If it's not collected according to the procedures or the law in place, then it may not be admissible in court. I hope that answers your question. Thank you for the question. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for the scintillating presentation. My question is, how useful is forensic evidence in securing conviction in court? My understanding is that evidence obtained or derived from crime scene investigation should assist the court in the resolution of crime. And has there been any cases whereby criminals have had to be convicted on the basis of forensic evidence within the islands?
Okay, thank you for your question, Proceed. In serious offenses, not only in serious offenses, but it's mostly the serious offenses that you will see the media covering. And this is a good example where you will see the work of the scientific support being tendered in court and giving evidence. The court have moved with the forensic evidence quite well, if I may comment on it. With regards to, before it was the traditional way of getting a confession. Now, if you don't have corroborating evidence, that is the scientific evidence, the silent witness to prove your case, it's a very, very difficult case. And the court requires, and the judges have put forward that they require this type of evidence. And it's shown in court because most of the cases that you will discuss, like I explained earlier, this case in court, we've given evidence with regards to scientific evidence. Prior cases too, maybe because, like I said earlier, it's not being put in the general public, the work we're doing, and even the court phase is not being put out there as much. But even in minor cases where we have housebreaking, fingerprint evidence is the main evidence being tendered in court for the conviction. And
you know, as much as I do that, there has been a general lack of resources and infrastructure, like we against the backdrop of the lack of a forensic DNA database. We don't have a profile database within the islands, right?
Yeah.
Relying on forensic evidence is one thing, and securing conviction is another thing, a completely different thing altogether. And my question is, has there been a conviction solely based on forensic evidence?
Solely based on yes, they have been. There have been cases where when we talk about forensic evidence, I didn't bring in my presentation because it's one of the partners we work with, but it doesn't fall within the scientific support. There have been cases where the forensic pathologists will give evidence with regards to if a case is a case involving foul play or it's a natural death. So in those cases, the main evidence will be the report of the forensic pathologist. In other cases where the main evidence could be the fingerprint evidence, and then you have corroborating evidence, because sometimes you won't have confession with regards to some cases. Yeah, there have been many cases like that. I hope I'm getting your question.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
And one another note, there has been a tendency to rely on one part of forensic evidence, the exclusion of others. Like when we talk of forensic evidence, there is a tendency to think that we are only relying on fingerprinting, yet there are other types of evidence like blood samples, like cigarette butts, saliva, etc.
Yes.
What's your take regarding the use of other types of evidence? Because the world over where we come from, there is a tendency to rely on fingerprint to the exclusion of other types of evidence.
Okay. Thank you again for the question. When it concerns the Supporting Criminal Records Bureau, the officers are well versed with regards to the different types of forensic evidence. The main weakness I can say is sensitizing the investigators that you can use those other types of evidence to prove your case when you're doing the investigation. Some officers are doing it quite well, that they are aware, but others they may need additional training with that. And a matter of when it comes to the court, the judiciary, I believe it's just a matter of bringing the evidence to court and let the judge decide, the court decide if the evidence will be accepted or not. But as police officers, we should do our part and educate the court with regards to the type of evidence, and to convince the court that the evidence being brought forward to prove the case is of standard. Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. Now, what I want to say is, as a social worker of a certain age, we know over the years, sometimes the police has not been associated with the latest technology or highest levels of education. I really commend you for doing everything you can.
Yes.
To bring up the levels to what we're hearing today.
Thank you.
So I know it's not easy because a lot of the officers are well-meaning officers, and many of them have been around for a long time, so they have the experience, but not necessarily the education to go with it as well. In terms of your sort of training blueprint, is there you have can I say targets for percentages of the staff to be trained with a minimum bachelor degree, etc.? Because in many countries, to be a police officer, you need to have a minimum of a bachelor degree in the relevant field, such as policing, bachelor of justice, double major policing, etc.
Yeah.
So, I know it's a very big feat, if you're going from a majority of the staff who do not have a certain level of education to bringing up the standard. And I'm hearing you talk about PhD and Master. This is fantastic. But at the same time, I know it's a bit of a tight balance. You've got to bring people on, sort of gradually, becoming people feel less time.
Yeah.
But you have certain, coming back to my question, certain blueprint targets of, percentages of where you want to get to and when in terms of education levels.
Okay, thank you for your question. Again, as I pointed out earlier, with the small team we have, it has proven to be difficult to have officers going abroad 3 years, 2 years, 7 years to study. It's proven to be very difficult because then you have less staff working. And in certain cases, you have only one analyst or one person specialized in a particular area. It would be easier we have more than one. Now, we've started to work on the professional development of each officers, because at the end of the day, it is the officers which are losing the opportunity for further studies, and we cannot contain them for the sake of the unit itself. But again, it's proven to be very difficult, and as you pointed out earlier, it's true that you can see imbalance with regards to qualification throughout the police. But hopefully there's a lot of work being done with the Gimawale Institute, the TGMI also, to bring the officers on par, and with the University of Seychelles too as well. I know there's work being done to have officers trained and to have specialized trainings for the officers. Not with regards to the scientific part, but with regards to policing and law enforcement. I don't know if maybe Mr. Hall can point it out further.
So what we're looking at is a fantastic example of what both police forces are picking up in terms of, being a niche, being very educated, having access to this technology. And one course that across,
All
receive courses carried across from a very parasitic to us.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Mr. Hall.
I'm going to amplify my colleague's sentiments about the quality of the presentation and it's fantastic. I think I have two things to say, well, not two things, but you're working with us on the new law enforcement and justice BSc as well, alongside our colleagues from prison service as well. So there's still a program happening at this moment in time. The facility is leading that for us well, so we're really happy about the programs. I don't find this. I'm putting myself down and putting myself as a 17-year-old student contemplating the next steps. I want to be a police officer. I'm thinking about joining the police because the career opportunities is not just about the beats or sitting in those cars and watching. There's obviously a lot more going on. The career opportunities for young people joining the force. My question is, do you support things like getting a bachelor's degree, going on to a master's program, and you mentioned PhD? Does the police support that? Do I need to sort of fund my own education alongside so I can progress within the course?
Okay, thank you for your question, Mr. Hall. With regards to education, there's two ways officers from the police have funded their education. I know one way, like you said, personally funding their education for further studies, and another way is through NHRD. We support those officers to have scholarships by NHRD, and currently there are some going throughout this year. But there is, to answer your question, there is a need to have highly educated people within the police, and when when you have officers who are highly educated, highly experienced, so I want to leave the experience part out because it's very important, then you can have a more thoughtful decision with regards to strategically where the police will be going and where you want to move as a police force. So it's very important.
I think it does be commendable, particularly within the support services that are very relevant to the support, the scientific support. How far are we away from the national database, the DNA national database?
This is one of the future projects we proposed. Not only with regards to DNA, again, like Proceed mentioned, there are other aspects of forensics that we want to be able to provide, but it's one that we keep pushing forward to have a full-fledged forensic laboratory where we can have the different services and operate at the level, an international level. A good example would be Mauritius. Mauritius have a really good forensic laboratory. They provide a service not only to Seychelles but countries around the African region too as well. And that's where we aim to. Maybe one day we'll be Seychelles and other countries bringing exhibits for us to analyze. That's what we're doing.
Hi, yeah, really interesting. And it'd be great if that presentation that you did would be in the morning session, and then the afternoon session we could dig deeper into a lot of the things that you've raised.
Yes.
Because obviously it's an introductory kind of talk, and I know we've got our young people here who you're trying to kind of entice into the profession, which is brilliant. But because we're a university and we sort of delve deeper into some of the challenges that your section and unit of bureau are facing, that could be something that would be, you know, an afternoon session that would go deeper into some of the challenges. For example, you mentioned sort of recruitment and training, you know, but to be honest, irrespective of how highly trained your staff are, there is a problem of conflict of interest. We're so small and we know each other.
Yeah.
So you're highly likely to know the person who's implicated or accused or a family member of people who are involved in a case. So those are some of the issues that your officers face, I would imagine.
Yes.
Okay, so I would like you to talk a little bit about some of those challenges, rather than sort of having that most of the latest high-tech stuff and the training, because I know that's really important, but the deeper issues as well for your staff. So that's one level, conflict of interest that your staff might face. But then also you hinted at things like tampering. So could you give us a little bit of an insight into how much of a problem that is? Are you able to safeguard really well against that? Or are you saying that there have been cases, so therefore you have to be especially heightened and aware of these things because you have experienced those things? So, you know, in a way, I'm asking a bit more of a deeper question about some of the challenges you're facing.
Okay, thank you for the question. I think the first one, you didn't really phrase it as a question, but more of a suggestion with regards to having an afternoon session where we can go dig deeper with regards to the challenges and the issues that we encounter. I think it would be a good idea. I can have my officers available to do a small presentation, maybe that's the different units specifically. Again, but we have to take into account that we are a specialized unit, and the amount of information we can give, it's quite sensible, and we cannot give all the information, because sometimes even we do not only talks but exhibitions and show some service we provide, we cannot show all because we have some visitors who doesn't come forward with the right intentions, I can say, because people are very clever outside. Again, the second part with regards to tempering, a conflict of interest, actually, you mentioned. The conflict of interest is there. It's there. We are a small country. But then again, all these are put forward with regards to the investigating officer, because the main case is being dealt with by the investigating officer when we're talking about criminal offenses. So that person will be the one in charge of all the evidence. And if it ever comes up that someone may be related to another person, the person is usually removed from the case, and we have another officer take. And we had one recent cases where we had to do that. Again, with tempering, we have procedures in place to minimize or avoid totally tempering. We haven't had any issues of tempering within the standard supporting criminal records bureau, which we encountered. If it were to happen, the officer will be dealt with. If there's a criminal case, it will be a registered case, and it will be dealt with criminally, or it could be dealt with under discipline under the Police Force Act. So there are measures in place, and hopefully we don't get to that end. But there are procedures in place, fingers crossed. But there are procedures in place to cater and to monitor those kind of things. Yeah, thank you for your question.
Yeah, if I heard you when you said one of the challenges that you are facing is to do with chain of custody. Is that correct?
Chain of custody. No, it's not one of the issues, actually. It's when I was explaining with regards to crime scene, whatever we're doing, they must maintain the chain of custody, and that's what the officers are trained in.
Yes. My question is, what procedural safeguards have you deployed to ensure that the chain of custody is maintained and is not broken?
Okay. First of all, what we're employing right now is the chain of, with regards to chain of custody, it is maintained throughout via exhibit log. From the start, the exhibit is secured through the court processes. Even exhibits that we send abroad, we have an exhibit chart which is tendered as evidence in court. So if there's any tempering, the document will state if it was lost or was misplaced or whichever. But we want to move towards a digital system. We've started talk with one company where we can have barcode and we can have the barcode scan. And this is what is being used internationally in forensic lab. Yeah, we want to move towards that.
I'm sorry to interject, but we're really short on time. Presenting.
Yes, we have Sergeant on the wheel.
So thank you for your questions. That's a really interesting debate as well.
Okay, thank you for your attention. So I'll introduce Sergeant Mowe. He's quite new with the police force. He's one of the individuals who come with join the force with a degree in criminology, and his interest has been in cybercrime, and I'll let him do the rest. Is this your one? Good afternoon, everybody. Allow me to introduce myself, a brief introduction. My name is Gerald Morell. I'm currently a detective sergeant working in the Criminal Investigation Division, CID. So mainly I do a lot of priority crime investigations and, of course, cybercrime. So I think it's important to highlight that before we begin that the landscape right now in the world is changing. I think we can all agree that since COVID-19, nothing has really quite been the same. And I think we live in a new era now, an era of interconnectivity and information. And when you look at things right now, information is now becoming the currency from which we live by. So if you think about it, everything that we need is pretty much right here. Everyone's got a mobile phone, whether it's paying your bills, checking the weather, you go into your car, the GPS is there, finance, management, text messages, communication, everything is right there, a touch away. It's so easy now that you don't even need to think about it. You bring it everywhere with you, everywhere you go. You've got a laptop, your phone, a smartwatch. To be fair, we've all become lazy. We've become dependent on it, right? So I think now we need to highlight the severity, because right now we are on the verge of ultimate flexibility and ultimate accessibility. So we are focusing so much on making our lives easier through innovation. It's what we've done. Just look at the last 2 decades, how technology has changed. Everything has become easier in life. What is the cost of that? What is the price to pay for innovation? What is the price that we must pay for innovation? As a collective, humans, we all try to evolve. That's what we've done. Evolution. So just look at artificial intelligence now, a potentially limitless concept, but how will it affect our society today? We are thinking so much on how to make our lives easier and evolve, but are we thinking about the evolution of crime? Because criminals are evolving. The crimes that were committed 50 years ago, they're not doing it anymore. Long gone are the days of Bonnie and Clyde when people are now robbing banks and stuff the old-fashioned way. They don't do that anymore. They sit at home, a couple of clicks, they use your name, they access your bank account, they send themselves 100,000 euros, no problem, right? So before we dive in, I want to look into exactly what is a cybercrime today. So we all know cybercrime, it could be harassment, cyber stalking, online fraud, scams. There are all these different things, but a cybercrime specifically now constitutes of a crime that either targets or involves a computer system or device. So it could be your laptop, your mobile phone. These are things that constitute a cybercrime. Where do they come from? They come from pretty much everywhere. Nowadays, you have countries that employ their own hacker groups to do their own thing. So nation states, organized crime groups, hackers themselves, hacktivists, everybody. And just to make it clear, you don't need to be tech savvy to be involved in cybercrime. It's really easy now. You can actually hire somebody to do whatever you want for you. So if I want to invade your bank account and I know you personally, I could pay someone to do that for me, provided they get a cut, of course. So right now, the landscape, what we are looking at, these are the most common vectors in cybercrime. So we are looking at right now, we have phishing, APTs, malware, ransomware, and I think the 3 most common attack vectors right now in the continent of Africa are BEC, which is business email compromise, online fraud, and also phishing. So phishing, I think, is the most popular right now, and for good reason, because phishing itself is a social engineering trick. So what these people do is they pretty much come to you as everything you've ever dreamed. They could come to you as your service provider, as a friend, as your boss, and they portray themselves as something that they are not in an attempt to get you to divulge your information. So the main request for them is to get your password or your name
so they can commit identity fraud, log into your accounts, steal your bank details. These are all the risks from phishing. So everybody here, I'm sure at some point in time you paid for a subscription service, right? Whether it's Apple Music, Spotify, ladies, Netflix, maybe. This is an example of a phishing email. So if you got this and you pay for a Spotify subscription, would you be able to tell that this is a scam? On first glance, I wouldn't. If I got an email like this and I have a Spotify subscription and they told me you're expiring, please renew your subscription. It's got my email. It knows how much, it knows the date of purchase, right? Seems legit, but it's not. What they want you to do is they want you to click. They want you to input your bank details. They want that information about you. These attacks, they're not random. This is the mistake. These are not random attacks. These people know who you are, they know what you do, and they know exactly when and where to send you these emails. Everybody here has Instagram? Would you be able to tell the difference that the one on the left is a fake login Instagram page and the one on the right is real? On first glance. Would you be able to tell? Seems legit, right? What they want to do here is they want you to input your full name, same way you would log in, your username or email, and your password. Once you input this in and you click sign up or log in or whatever, it will redirect you to the Instagram or Facebook page that turns up when you input your email or password wrong. So you would type it in and you would click, and it would redirect you to that page, and you would think, oh, everyone messes up their password, right? You wouldn't think twice about it. I'll just input it in again. And then you would log into the actual page. So you think everything is fine, but these people have actually taken your personal information. So whether it's Facebook or Instagram, now they know your full name, they know your email address. If you use the same password for everything, they know that too. So now they have the details to what? They could potentially log into your bank. They could sit in your emails and watch your emails, and they could execute other attacks. These are the type of things that we have to be aware of. So typically, these type of phishing attacks would come through your email, right? And through these email links. And unless you're really vigilant and really careful, but I mean, everything is so easy now, you don't really think about it too much. You get an email, you click on it, you don't think too much. I get 100 emails from Facebook, whatever, same thing, right? You're just gonna click on it. How many times do you get an email saying, someone's trying to access your account, please change your password? How do you know if it's real? Right? The best advice I can give you is to never click on the links that you get in your email. If you're really unsure, go on to the actual website yourself in a browser and do it that way. Or if you've ever heard of the OTP, so you know when you input a login and you get a text message that says input this code to log in, that's another safer way. You can do that instead. But if you follow these links, you're putting yourself at risk unless you actually know what you are looking for. So the next thing, which is interlinked with phishing, is malware and spyware. So this might seem like a little bit of jargon here, but I promise they're all related. Malware itself is a type of malicious software that is inserted into your system, whether it's your mobile phone or your computer, designed to perform specific tasks. So that could be extracting your personal information, your documents, data, anything they want, really. And the way they do this is through these email links or through website links that you click on. So if you go on a website, there might be a part of that website designed to entice you to click on it, but the website itself is set up for that specific purpose. So these type of people, they will insert malware into your system, and another form of malware, which is spyware. So this is similar, except it does not allow them to take control of your system. With spyware, this will actually allow the intruder to sit on their own system wherever they are in the world and watch every single thing that you are doing on your computer or on your phone. So these people will watch you, and they will watch you for weeks, months. They will read every single text, every single email that you are sending. They will try to find out who you are, what you do, where you're from, and what makes you tick. And then when they find the right moment, then they will try to send a phishing email to scam you into sending them your personal information. Like, for example, if SP-Cat, if I owed him 1,000 rupees and somebody was actually sitting on my system and watching me, and he's reading my conversation with SP-Cat, and he knows that I owe him 1,000 rupees. So he's reading our conversation in real time, and he can see SP will send me his account details. Oh, I'm going to send you my account details now. Here you go. They will intercept that data in real time, and he will change the account details to his own account details before the message is received to my device. So I get the message from him thinking it's normal, but instead of sending him 1,000 rupees, I'm sending it to the hacker. These are all the different attack vectors that we are facing. The next one, I think, is growing in popularity, and it has the potential to signify global change, I think. Now, because it's so easy, it's ransomware. So this itself is similar to malware, and it's quickly becoming one of the most popular attack vectors for these hackers to employ because it's so easy. Ransomware will enter your system in the form of malware, which you clicked on through a phishing link. Oftentimes it will sit there until 3 o'clock in the morning on a Friday night when you're out partying, and then it will decide it wants to start encrypting your data. So this affects a lot of businesses now, because what will happen is they will encrypt your data, and there's no way that you can get your data back on that computer unless you pay. And they will leave a note too. They're very cordial. They will leave a note explaining exactly what you have to do and where you have to go in order to pay your ransom. To give you an example, there's a case I'm aware of that happened here in the Seychelles. I won't go into too much detail, but there was a well-known business, I would say, and the manager was infected on their private system with a form of malware. And the malware watched them for a few weeks and found out that they were the manager of this business. So the hacker said, okay, I need to find a way to gain access to this person's work servers or work computer. So they waited and they watched all the emails and communication that was being sent, and they posed as a friend, a colleague that they were speaking to, in an attempt to get them to open an email, which they did. They opened it at work. When they opened it at work, they released this ransomware into the system. Upon doing that, they started to notice that their files were not beginning to open. Some wouldn't, some would not. So what the first thing they did was call the IT guy. Luckily, the IT guy was well versed, and he realized that all the data on that computer was becoming encrypted slowly. So what he did was the right thing. He unplugged the device from the server, but by then it was done. It was already too late. The device was already under encryption, and all you could do in a situation like that is burn the computer, forget about it, forget about every file on there, every single thing, right? And this doesn't just affect businesses. They can attack you personally. It doesn't cost them anything. In fact, it's so easy now that ransomware is being employed as a business model. So these groups now, they're too lazy to do it themselves. So they make the ransomware and they sell it, and they put it on websites, or they get the hacker to set it through phishing links to the victim to pay money, to launder money, and then everybody gets a cut. So the ransomware service, I think it estimates around, it costs around 4 billion every year. Just this ransomware service. I think this one was called WannaCry. It costs businesses $4 billion every single year, to give you the scale of how much money there really is in cybercrime. And they're just sitting at home and doing this, you know? Think about if something like this was to happen here, if it was to happen to the hospital or the government servers or even the post office. You know what I mean? Think about, ladies, there's no more Shein packages coming in. There's no more AliExpress, all of that. And not just that, but they also have access to all your personal data. If you think about medical records, everything about you. Hospital won't be able to provide medical service to people. This is all risk. And it all literally comes from just one click. So how do we stop this? Short answer is, you can't. It's not really that simple, right? Because the landscape right now is evolving. So if you think about why your laptop or phone always has an update every couple of weeks, there's a reason. It's because they are constantly addressing problems and issues which are there. But in doing so, they create new problems. So it constantly becomes a race against time to try and stop the hackers before they find out the new problem. So it's an endless loop. If you also think about things like this, on average, it takes a minimum of 3 months for a company to come out with a software update to patch a potential issue. 3 to 5 months. So that's 3 to 5 months when all of us are sitting here vulnerable and exposed. Like, the best analogy I can give you is we're almost like chickens in a chicken coop with the door wide open, hoping that the fox outside is not hungry. We're helpless. We rely on these service providers. We rely on Apple, Samsung, whoever. We rely on them for security. When things like this happen, it could happen to you personally, it could happen to your business, agency. We're all pretty much helpless. And it all starts from one person. All it takes is one person to make a mistake, and it affects everybody. Because things like this take a long time to contain even. And a lot of times there's nothing you can do once it happens, especially in the case of ransomware. Some of the precautions you may take, like I mentioned earlier, there's two-factor authentication. There's actually using strong passwords, different passwords for different websites, backing up your data. And when you pay for a service, you should always pay for a service. You should never use a service that's free, especially when it's an antivirus or a VPN, virtual private network. Because when you don't pay for something, you are the customer. When you don't pay, you are the customer. It's scary. Like, these are things you don't really think about until it's already too late, you know? You don't really think too much about it. But what are we doing right now? Seychelles law enforcement, we've identified that there is an influx of cybercrime cases, and they are changing in severity. So we are no longer starting to see cases of cyber harassment. We are starting to see more in-depth corporate level of cybercrimes. And the fact that a ransomware such as WannaCry, which costs 4 billion globally, we've brushed shoulders with it here on our small island. It just shows you that there are warning signs here that we have to look out for. There are warning signs that a change is coming. Criminals are not the same anymore. They certainly don't have to be here. They don't have to know you. They just need access to a computer, and they need you to click on the link. It's pretty much that simple. Right now, we are on the cusp of setting up a dedicated cybercrime unit in an attempt to combat this. And I think the next step, which a lot of global nations are getting involved in, is to employ a CERT, a computer emergency response team, which is a group of individuals dedicated to identifying these issues to protect our essential services, gas, water, electricity. These are all connected on the DICT, they're all connected. If something was to happen, it may not happen today, it may not happen tomorrow, but it could happen in 10 years' time. What is the risk? I think we've all heard the saying that failure to prepare is preparing to fail. It's applicable here. Here's a quick example. I don't know if you can see it too well, but you can literally go on these forums and you can literally hire somebody to do certain services for you. So I think here there's a Facebook account hacking. You can hack somebody's phone, social network. You can even hire them for a month for $10,000 to do whatever you please. And they take Bitcoin as well. It really is that easy. You don't need to know how to do it yourself. You could pay somebody to do it. If you really hate your boss, you could hire George here to destroy his life for $1,700. It really is it really is that simple. And this is the scary thing. We all neglect this. It's the lack of awareness. But it's scary how much can be done. They can accomplish twice the damage in almost half the time. And we are the ones who pay the price. So I think the brief discussion today, I think it's important to say it doesn't even begin to scratch the surface on the potential growing issue of cybercrime, because it is changing. The issues of today are not the same as the ones we will face tomorrow. And I think it's probably one of the only types of crime we are dealing with now, not just here, but on a global level, which law enforcement, we are always 2 steps behind the criminals. So I think now we're at a point where we need to start being more proactive instead of reactive, because by the time we have time to react to some of these attacks, it's already too late. It's already too late. And I think we are all at risk. We have to be aware. And I think the most important thing now, which we are trying to do as law enforcement, is to collaborate with foreign agencies and entities to work together, because we are reaching a point now where we cannot do this alone. We need to share solutions in an attempt to combat the growing issue that is on the horizon. So please, everybody, if you take anything away, just remember to think before you click. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for this presentation. What I want to point is, I think the weakest link in the cybersecurity chain is humans.
Yes.
So the awareness side of things is very important. And again, coming back to my first question, is related to policies. So yeah, I'll come to awareness, but again, in terms of policies, still, as you mentioned about WannaCry was specifically targeted on Windows operating systems, the outdated Windows operating system, which actually Microsoft itself decommissioned. Still, if you look at these things are got personal experience. If you look at the private and public sector, we still see applications running on top of Windows XP operating systems, where even Windows 8, 8.1 operating systems are already decommissioned. So I think this is where the need for policies and stringent audits are required. And all these shops who are selling the laptops with pirated operating systems are again putting the entire population in risk. So I think that awareness part of this, this was again emphasized by the Mauritius CERT, the Computer Emergency Response Team. They came here, I think last year, and they gave certain recommendations towards the ministry. So still waiting, what are we doing about that?
Just to touch on something you said that they were running on outdated systems. A lot of, especially essential services now, they do run on outdated systems. I think they go back all the way to Windows 97 or something, because to update the system like that on a grand scale would take a lot of time. And nowadays, a lot of the most current types of malware or ransomware, they need to be specifically engineered for, like you said, a Windows system. So if a ransomware or malware attack was to attack a Mac system, it would have to be designed specifically for a Mac system, the same way for Windows XP. That's why these attackers need to know exactly what you are using in order to get access. So oftentimes it's actually beneficial for you to use an outdated system, because the hackers are all focused on everybody running Windows 11 Pro or the latest Mac software. You know what I mean? But in terms of policies and stuff, I agree. Right now, we are working on a few reviews, and we are bringing in external organizations in an attempt to make a more cohesive legislation and policy surrounding cybercrime, so that when we do communicate with foreign countries, which we will have to, we all speak the same language. So hopefully that should be done very soon. I know the Seychelles Police Force is working hard on that. So that's the next step, is for everybody to speak the same language, especially in the continent of Africa and Indian Ocean. Does that answer your question? Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for a very informative presentation. But as a legal person, I'm thinking of the law aspect of it. So I was thinking more around the cross-border crimes. So we talk about cyber crimes, right, happen in Sweden, and having impact in Seychelles.
Right.
How would you describe the difficulties in handling that? And would you describe, you talk about cooperation between different criminal justice systems, etc. Are there any measures that are taken to enhance this level of cooperation? Because I would want to think that it would be key also fighting cybercrime.
Great question. It goes hand in hand with the legislation part. So when you have things like this, where there's a crime affecting, let's say, you here in the Seychelles, but that person is in Switzerland, or let's say South Africa, we would have to identify where the problem came from, and we would then liaise with the foreign agency, whether it be the FBI or Interpol or whoever, within that jurisdiction, to inform them that there's been a cybercrime committed from their country, if they could investigate with this information. So we will give them all the data that we would take from you, and they would have to physically take it the next step. So it's the same way if they see a cybercrime coming from Seychelles. I know I've certainly seen some cases like this, where they can only go so far and trace it to an internet service provider, providing internet to somebody here who's at, I don't know, State House. But they can't physically do the investigation part. So that's where they will communicate with us, and we would then take over with the information that they gave us to finish the investigation to see whether indeed it is somebody there or it's related to somewhere else. So this is why the international cooperation is so important, and why we need to set up these agreements, because cybercrime is a transnational problem. So, and it's very time sensitive. So that's why we need to have these agreements and policies in place to enable swift communication transfer, to make sure that these people do actually get caught. Does that help answer your question? Thank you.
I think we can wrap the session here. Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So on behalf of the university, I would like to thank each and every one of you who have presented here, and to the department as well. It was a very eye-opening session for us as well. And also we are seeing here more possible collaborations, like we've been mentioning about the training sessions, awareness sessions, which also university also can be part of, and we can collaborate in that way. So thank you once again. I hope all of you enjoyed the session. So see you next Wednesday. Thank you.